Hi everyone, welcome to the Fall of Magic pre-release.
Is this how you make the big bucks?
Probably not the most efficient way to make the big bucks, but yeah, I feel like I have a really solid, this year I'm going to have a really solid like lower to like middle class income off of game design, so that's good.
Tell the story about the local delivery you did this week.
Oh, okay. This isn't, okay, well, funny story. So I hand delivered a lot of the scrolls this week, all the ones that people that ordered them in Olympia. And most of the people I knew. There are people that come, so we have a weekly story games meetup where we hang out and play games. But then there was this one guy I didn't know, and Ariel, his name was Ariel. So I went over to this person's house, he lived like 3 blocks away from me, and I knock on the door, and he answers and looks at me and he says, "You're Ross Cowman." And I said, "Yeah, here's your game." And he said, "I wasn't expecting it tonight. I mean, like, why would you?" Yeah, so that was pretty funny. Yes?
I would love to hear about your experience managing all these people, 2 illustrators and all these designers, and having that collaboration happen while still maintaining your artistic vision.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the largest creative team that I've ever worked with on a project before. There were 2 artists and 10 designers, and then a whole bunch of people involved in the production process, like silk screening and printing. And so when you're working with a creative team that's that large, it's really important to give everyone really clear instructions and parameters about what it is that you're looking for. So, for instance, for all of the artwork, I wouldn't just say, hey Taylor, draw me a castle. You know, I would say, hey, write out like a paragraph and just be like, this is, you know, each of the designers for the island wrote out a paragraph, kind of what they were looking for, and then Taylor and I would meet and we'd kind of pull examples off the internet and work towards it that way. And then, you know, like with Doug, you know, we used the same process, except I wrote all the little paragraphs, and would include like, for instance, Estalia, that big castle-y thing over there. It's just to the left of the ocean. I think the instructions were to do something, you know, it had to be by the sea, and kind of Prague-inspired architecture, and then also you want to, when you're working with people, you don't want to try and like micromanage them. You want to try and give them a lot of room to just sort of be themselves and to express their own artistic ideas. So that was kind of one of the challenges. And then with the challenges for the island design, that was a lot harder because I think I did less of a good job communicating exactly, just for me, even understanding what went into a good prompt and what went into, and how all these little bite-sized bits of creative fuel work together to help us create a story is still something that I'm very much discovering. And that involved like a lot of back and forth, and then also trying to take all these people's voices and then try and make it all feel like the same game, you know, was also a big challenge. And I ended up doing a lot more editing than I would have liked to, and I think that was just kind of, there's also a big time constraint on that. We only had a month of development time for the islands. So yeah, that's kind of what my experience was like.
Would you do anything different if you were starting from scratch right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have some other projects that I'm working on. No, I feel like this was a really healthy development process, and I'd definitely do it again. So.
Have you ever experienced where you've done a game, and then after your game, something in your everyday reality mirrors what you created in the game?
Oh, yeah. This actually just happened where we were a couple 2 days ago. It was raining a whole bunch, and water actually started leaking into the place where we were storing a bunch of the scrolls and got into them. And Jackson pointed out, like, this is the drowning library. That's what's happening right now, which is one of the islands. And he then posited he thinks that each month is going to be another one of the island cards, because there's 12 of them. You know, I think it's pretty natural when we create story and when we do creative work in general to draw associations between things that are happening in our lives and what's happening creatively. that is just part of how the brain works. And and I think that it does work both ways too. Like if you spend a lot of time thinking about particular kinds of story, or if you play a game and you choose to be this particular kind of character and relate to the world in a certain way, I think it goes both ways. I think the world affects us and we affect the world. That's what magic is, right?
There's a lot of components to this game.
Mm-hmm.
Was it kind of like really hard to face how you're going to do that in the production end of it? Or how did you go about knowing or figuring out how to get all of the different components pulled together?
Yeah, with any complicated process, you just do it in bite-sized pieces. You don't eat your whole burger in one bite. Just take little bites. And so yeah, I just started. This is my third game that I've published using the Kickstarter model, and one thing that's great about that is you really have to figure out your budget before you start making the thing. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what are the components and that I can afford, where am I going to get these things from. You make a spreadsheet so that calculates the little total, so you can figure out how much how much the retail price is going to be of your game at the end. And there's a communication that happens between your game design and the realities of production. If there was no production budget, you could just do whatever you wanted. Yeah, right. I could have Doug could hand draw every scroll. Oh, come on. Yeah. Or okay, I hire 10 Dougs.
Unless you pay by the hour.
Yeah, right. But it gets ridiculous pretty quickly, right? So you actually learn to really love the constraints, because the constraints are. It's kind of like an uncontained fire is really dangerous and it burns down forests. But a contained fire is like a wood stove, and it can heat your house and it can cook your food. So I think of constraints like that container that's holding the fire in that allows it to be useful. So the monetary realities of actually producing things is one of the challenges that I really love. It's like its own little game in itself, figuring out, hey, what do I actually have the tools to produce? What do I have the tools to make? Who are the people around me that want to work with me? Who are, what are their skills? What are their resources? And, and by letting go of the final product a little bit, you end up with something that is probably a lot more beautiful and a lot more wild than what you would have made if you had perfect control.
Do you find yourself trying to design games that you want to play, or that remind you of games you've played in the past, or you're trying to step off into something new, or where is your...
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, I think that I'm 36, and I see my 30s as being the time in my life where I'm able to realize all the things that I was really excited about when I was a little kid. And when I was in my 20s, I started all these ideas, but I didn't know how to finish anything, and now I actually know how to finish things. I was just talking about Serpent's Tooth earlier to that gentleman back there, and that is very much a reaction to this misconception that I had of how Dungeons & Dragons was played. When I was a kid, I thought that the Dungeon Master was a character in the story that you could kill, and then you would become the Dungeon Master, which sounds like a cool game too. Well, I thought so as an adult, and I made that game. Where it's this King Lear kind of story where, because when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you have this one player that has so much narrative authority and so much creative control over what happens in the game, and everyone else has this really tiny bit of control. And I thought it'd be really fun to have a game where maybe it starts off that way, but then you lose power. So by the end of the game, somebody else is in power, and you kind of pass that role around. And and Fall of Magic is also I very much wanted to write Lord of the Rings with my friends when I was playing role-playing games when I was younger. And you don't quite get to do that when you're playing the traditional older school fantasy role-playing games, because someone's kind of already written Lord of the Rings and you're playing in their version of it. They've got these adventures they've written for you. The characters are very these specific, they're these very specific archetypes. You can't just start off as a powerful wizard. You have to start off as a very weak wizard. And you kind of get more powerful over time, but everything else gets more powerful around you, and you never really get, But in this game, you can just be that powerful wizard, and you can, or you might decide to be, and then once you realize that you can be this like really powerful wizard and have all this like strength and power, sometimes then you realize, you know what? Actually, I want to be a criminal, or I want to be someone that actually doesn't have power, and explore what that's like in this story. I had this fantastic game where a friend of mine was playing. My friend Kira was playing this knight from Stormguard, and I was playing a fugitive of Stormguard, and I was her captive. And like for the whole like first 2 hours of the game, I was just in shackles, and we were having these like philosophical discussions about what justice was and all these lovely things. And then it just led to this really like poignant, powerful moment in the game where she realized that she needed to let me go, and then I chose to stay to like protect everyone because I believed in what we were doing. It was this, and that sort of stuff. I don't know. That's like I'm getting kind of goosebumps thinking. It was such a powerful moment. Yeah. So I would say yes is very much what I am trying to do with my designs.
How did you come up with the name?
I really liked my band name, Fall of Electricity, and I thought that would be, and like Fall of Magic. So like that was kind of rolling around in my head a little bit because the band name Fall of Electricity has to do with this one summer where we didn't pay our electric bill for a really long time at the punk house I was living at, and then they send you that last letter where they're like, no, we're gonna shut off your energy if you don't pay us. So we got all the money together. It felt like $1 million to us. It was like $200. So we got it all together and we drove to their office, over by the co-op, and we gave them the money. And me and Heather, as we're driving away, Heather looks at me and is like, we don't have to pay our electric bill for another 2 months. Yeah, and we're just like, this is going to be the summer of electricity or whatever. So then Fall of Electricity came from that idea, the summer of electricity. And then Fall of Magic, I like how, so I think that's kind of where the seed of it came from. And then I like how in the game it both refers to, and this does not go across to any of the translations at all, they all are Autumn of Electricity. But I like how it both implies, falling down or, falling from power or something, the decay of autumn and also the season. So that was the sort of creative path. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for. And I hope you have a good time playing. So if you're sitting down at a table, I assume that you want to play.
And then everyone takes their individual tokens off of the map, and the person who moved the maggots gets to describe this thing. So like the thing under that. So like the ending of summer in the Oak Hills. As we like travel into the Oak Hills, or the hospitality of the Barley Lord as we travel to the Barley Town.